Are you winning? Do you need help in your life or business? Could you use some inspiration, business strategies, and success principles? I'm Daniel Gomez, award-winning business coach, keynote speaker, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you create a successful life and elevate your business. Together, we will discover the keys that unlock your success and dreams. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire. And today we're going to educate you in a special way. I'll tell you what, we got a special guest here on the show. I'm excited. We've opened up the show to a whole other level, a whole new array of guests. And my first guest is no other but than a rock star speaker. I'll tell you what, I had the pleasure of really just connecting with him on a deeper level. And let's welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, Mr. Mills Rodgers. Rodgers, what's going on, my brother?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know the epic speaker you are, my brother. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please.
My name is Mills Rodgers. I like to say that I help educators meet the needs of students. And so that's a real quick synopsis of what I speak on. I'm an education speaker, so I speak to educators. I also speak to students. I help people live their best lives.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a part of the show where we tell you, get out your pen, get out your paper, because Mills is going to drop some massive value. You definitely want to take notes, especially if you are an aspiring speaker or want to build a speaking business. He's done it. He's doing it. Not that he's done it, but he's done it and he's doing it because he ain't done yet.
I'm not done.
I when because you used to actually live here in San Antonio, man, and I wanted to connect with you because I would see some of your stuff on LinkedIn and just I saw your stuff on different platforms that we're both on, and I was like, man, I need to connect with this guy. It just never happened. But what I loved about you is you do speak to the youth. And I remember when I started, that was where I really was just speaking at high schools, and people said, you should speak at high schools. And I said, as a matter of fact, I still do, right? I like going back. What's so special about really pouring into the youth of today? Because I feel like, man, they need some direction and they need a lot of direction. And I think sometimes from what I've seen, Mills, is that a student, even educators, right? We get these relationship filters and we don't listen to the people that are around us because we just tune them out after a while. What is the best part of you going and speaking to the youth when you go speak to junior high and high school students?
Oh, I love speaking to junior high and high school students. The one thing is, I used to be a teacher. And so I taught 15 years in San Antonio. And so as a teacher, you got to go in there every day and try to educate kids on things that, in all honesty, sometimes they're not very interested in. And what I found, especially my later years in education, is that kids are very interested in personal development, how to be their best selves, things that they feel that they can apply in the real world, in real life. And so I really enjoy going into schools and sharing those examples of people that were like them, that overcame their circumstances and ended up living their best lives. And kids tend to find that very, very inspirational.
Yeah. So you heard him right, ladies and gentlemen. He went from being a teacher for 15 years to now speaking to students and speaking to educators. That's rare, right? I mean, let's just be honest. Where in your journey, because you taught for 15 years, but it had to happen kind of before the 15 years was over. When did you start getting the itch? Like how many years into speaking and to teaching that, I mean, because one day you don't wake up and say, you know what, I want to be a speaker, and all of a sudden you leave overnight. But after, right, you left at year 15. How long, right before that, when did you start thinking about it? What year did you really start about, man, maybe I could do this?
I can definitely answer that question. So 2012. I was working on my principal certification and still teaching. And so that was my primary focus at the time, becoming an administrator. And I was at Nimitz Middle School, and the principal was like, man, we got to get this one speaker to come on campus. I saw him at a conference. He's fantastic. And this was toward the end of the school year. So this was like spring of 2012. Come back August 2012. Teachers, we have a lot of training and stuff to do the week before school starts. And so we're back on campus. Principal is like, guess what, y'all? It's probably that Monday or Tuesday. She was like, we got him. We got this speaker. He's coming to campus on Thursday to talk to teachers. I'm just like, whatever. Okay, fine. He just kind of like, that's just part of the job, whatever. Keep it moving. So the dude comes on Thursday and gives his spiel. And honestly, it was very anticlimactic because I was expecting a lot more out of him based on the shtick that he
The hype, right? The hype. You're
hype,
like, come on. You're like, all right, let us in, coach.
yeah. Basically, he has a lot of hype. He has a shtick or whatever you want to call it. Just kind of tagline, like, and I'm not, like I said, I don't want to call him out or anything, so I'm not going to go deep into it. But he does have something that gives him a lot of notoriety. And one of the teachers next to me, she was like, Mr. Rodgers, they paid that man all that money. They could have got one of us to go up there and talk. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you. And but I had no interest in speaking. In fact, I never ever thought I was going to be a speaker. But it did plant a seed at the time. And we know seeds take a lot of watering and fertilizer. And so over the years, for probably the next 4 years or so, I got a lot of fertilizer, so to speak. Dealt with a lot of fertilizer. And so, yeah, I was trying to become a principal, going to a lot of different interviews and everything.
Hold on. You're going from becoming a principal, right? You're going, like, ladies and gentlemen, listen to what he's saying, because this is God trying to speak to somebody right now. He's going to school to become a principal and administrator from being a teacher. And now he's a speaker. Just like that, his life changed. So keep on. I want people to see, because sometimes people get stuck in where they're at. They don't see what could be. Let me say again, sometimes you get stuck at where you're at, ladies and gentlemen, and you don't see where you could be. So continue on, man. I'm loving this story, brother. This is good.
Yeah. So, basically from 2012 to about 2016. And look, that's 4 years. That's a long time. And so, I'm going to different interviews. I got my principal certification, going to interviews, and it's always like, oh, you're not the right fit, or we're going to pick somebody else. And I'm also going not just to principal interviews, but for other positions in the school district. And things just aren't quite panning out. And I had some experiences where, in fact, I had one interview where they actually, it was the most rigorous interview process. They offered me the job. I made it through. I was the #1 candidate. They offered it to me. They called me. I was on campus at the school I was assigned. They called me. The principal was like, Mr. Rodgers, the kids love you, because I actually had to do a day of shadowing. So I got a chance to meet the kids on that campus and everything. Kids love you. The staff loved you. I think I'm going to offer you the job. And I'm like, oh, great. And I asked him, I'm like, well, what does the pay look like? Because I had already reviewed, all of this stuff is public knowledge. And he's like, well, what are you expecting? And I told him, I threw out my number, and he's like, okay, let me call you back in 20 minutes. So calls me back in 20 minutes. He's like, know what? We can't do this. We got to go in a different direction. I'm like, what? Over the pay? Like, that's not your money. This is the school district money. And he's like, we're going in a different direction. This isn't a negotiation. And I'm like, the number I quoted would have been the lowest as far as the administrators on your staff. So I don't get it. But he went in a different direction. And it's kind of like, man, what's God trying to tell me? Is God trying to tell me, like, this is not what I have for you? And so that was in 2016. And so then I started looking at other opportunities to make a little extra money. And so I got into, I was really starting to get into the whole.
So I'm curious, right? I'm curious. Just for the record, right? So okay, you were in San Antonio at the time. I'm in San Antonio right now. What does a principal make? Like 70,000, 80,000? Is that what a principal makes nowadays?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit more, but yeah, I would say, because that was in 2015, 2016. So yeah, I quoted like 70,000 as an assistant principal.
And he
And
told you no.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
I just want to give people a point of reference, right? Because sometimes people think, right? Like we hear of teachers that right do a lot and then they earn, right? My son was going to school to get his teaching degree. He went for 5 years. We spent $100,000 in his education, and he called me the last semester, says, "Dad, I want to be a teacher." I'm like, "Well, why don't you want to be a teacher?" He goes, "Dad, because the lifestyle that I want on $50,000 a year, they ain't gonna make it." So to give our audience a point of reference, ladies and gentlemen, think about that. Went to school, got his degree. Now he's going interviewing all over the place. And this is a fun part. So tell us. So you asked him for 70,000. I think you're worth a million, brother, just for the record. But what happened next?
Well, yeah, I mean, the guy was like, "Oh, we're going in a different direction." And I'm like, "Okay, I would have been the lowest paid administrator on your staff." He had two other administrators. And yeah, according to the TEA reports, they were making more because it shows the average. So I would have definitely been the lowest. And so, yeah, I felt like God was talking to me. And, yeah, I was trying to go from that 50,000, what you say your son was talking about, to maybe 70,000, even though the dedication and time was going to definitely go up a lot as an administrator. You're going to do probably 70 hours a week. So you're going to really, really earn that 70,000. And so, yeah, I started looking at other things. I was really getting into the whole motivational stuff. And I hadn't really even listened to motivational stuff before in my life, believe it or not. And but then I was also just trying to expand, like, okay, you know what? Let me quit, let me not limit myself. So I got into arbitrage. Started doing some stuff with Amazon and stuff like and eBay, like finding old stuff around the house and selling it. And I'm like, hey, maybe I could work this out. And so I end up I had an idea, like, you know what, maybe I could get some stuff from China. And so I was thinking, like, what is something cheap I could buy wholesale, maybe from China, and then put it on Amazon or eBay and sell? Bow ties.
Bow
So I
ties.
started, yeah, because you could get them for like 50 cents from China. And then, of course, you sell them retail here for $8, $9, $10, whatever. So
Yes.
I started doing that on eBay and Amazon and just some other things too. But of course, it wasn't enough money to really make a difference. You might make a few dollars a month. And so then I started thinking like, man, again, I was getting into the motivational stuff a lot, really liked it. My kids at school would be like, "Sir, you're kind of motivational." And so I'm like, hey, maybe that's something I can do. I don't have a problem being in front of an audience. Even though I'm introverted, I don't have a problem being in front of an audience. I like it. And so I started looking at speaking. And so then I was like, the barrier to entry is low. You don't have to make a huge investment to get into it. And so 2017 had my I considered that my entrance into speaking. I spoke at CASA in San Antonio. I did a training for their staff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of my journey into the speaking realm.
And now you speak all over the country. You're one of the top teachers when it comes to education. Yeah, I love what you're saying. So I have a question, and I want you to be honest, because when I started speaking, people laughed at me. They go, "Daniel, you're leaving a $250,000 a year job in the automotive industry to start your business as a speaker, as a motivate." Because I clearly told my wife, God told me to be a motivational speaker. Like, the people laugh at you, or they applauded you, or what was it when you say, think about what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, because somebody right now, you're carrying too much what everybody around you is saying. God's put that dream in your heart. Maybe for you, it's not to be a speaker. Maybe for you, it's to open your business, a bakery, whatever that business may be, whatever it is that God's put it in your heart to do, but you're not doing it because you're so scared of people that are going to laugh at you. Who cares? You
Very
got to
true.
follow your dream. So when you made this decision, and I want to emphasize that, ladies and gentlemen, because he went to college not just for 4 years. To be an administrator, you got to go longer. How many years you got to go?
Basically another two.
Okay,
You have to have the master's and the certification.
so a total more schooling, right? So at least 6 years of college.
Hmm.
And now he decides to leave to become a speaker. And I'm laughing because it's like people laughed at me, Mills, and it's like, what was the reception you got when you just kind of shared that with people that were close to you? That they laugh at you, or did they applaud you?
Well, I mean, more so applaud, to be honest. You know, again, when I stepped into speaking in 2017, I was still teaching. And honestly, you know, I'm a very low-key person. And so it's funny, there was another guy that on the campus I was working at that was actually getting into speaking and doing pretty well. Well, he was doing well as far as maybe being visible. And I can almost guarantee that people in 2024, they probably thought that he would have been the one in the position I'm in right now. But, you know, I mean, for whatever reason, it didn't happen that way. But we were both kind of on campus at the same time, and he was a lot more visible than me at that time. And so, yeah, I would think that if anything, people would have been like, man, he would have been I thought he would have blew up before Mills did.
Are you an aspiring speaker? Do you have a book that you've been wanting to write for months, maybe even years? Or are you an aspiring podcaster? You want to start that podcast like the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show and don't know where to start? Well, at Daniel Gomez Enterprises, we can help you do all three. We can help you become that paid speaker, share your story to the world, write your book, and get your podcast launched and help you produce it. We'd love to help you. Give us a call at 210-663-5954. That's 210-663-5954. We can help you become that paid speaker, write that book, and launch your podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call now. In your thought process, right? In your mindset, in your thinking, what are two things that you had to overcome that you didn't think were going to even come up? But now you start this journey, the old identity of being a teacher and administrator. Now you're embodying the identity of a speaker. What are two things, right? Two thought patterns that you had to overcome? And like, where did that come from?
Two things that I had to overcome. I think, you know, I think by the time I got to the point of wanting to be a speaker, you know, I had to make a lot of changes about myself over the years. You know, I had to get fed up with a lot of things. And so I got fed up with my current situation. I started to realize that, hey, life is too short. And there's things I want to do. And I believe in myself, even though I feel like other people are not believing in me. And yes, in all honesty, I feel like, yes, going to those interviews, people weren't believing in me, because if they did, they would have hired me, not the other person. And so, yes, to me, that was kind of like, these people don't believe in me, but I believe in myself. I know I am a talented individual, regardless of what other people are passively saying to me through their actions, because they don't want to give me a certain position. And so I feel like that's one thing that I had to accept and overcome, and continue to have a belief in myself. And stepping into this realm of speaking and being in front of people and selling myself to people, having that belief that, hey, you know what, these people will see that I am a smart person. You know, I do have something to contribute. And so I think those are a couple of things right there, is, you know, having enough belief in myself to still put myself out there. You know, and I think a lot of times people prevent themselves from doing that because they're like, well, like you said, what are people going to say? You know, how are they going to look at me? And I got past that.
I love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about what he just said. Think about what Mills just said. Write that down for yourself right now, because you need to come back and study these notes that you're writing down, because you got out your pen and paper. What are you fed up with that you're still tolerating? What are you fed up with that you are still tolerating, ladies and gentlemen? Because the truth is this, you're fed up with it, but you're still there. Mills got fed up with it. He said, life's too short. People, you have the misconception that you're going to live forever. You're not going to live forever. You're going to die. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to die. You watching on YouTube, you here on Spotify, you're going to die. So what are you waiting for? You're fed up with your current situation. You're tolerating people around you that don't serve you anymore. You're outgrowing people because you're taking that step to improve yourself, but you go back to that environment that doesn't support the new vision, the new dream you have for yourself. but you keep on, keep on, keep on tolerating, and you get more and more fed up. And you just got to do what Mills did. You just got to make a decision one day, don't you?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You just have to get to that point. I like to say success is in 3D. You can put on your 3D glasses. You have to have discipline, which is doing the right things consistently. You have to make the right decisions, choices, and you got to be desperate. You got to want it bad, because that
Mm.
desperation will help you be disciplined a lot of times. It will help you be consistent. If you stay focused on the goal at hand. And I think that's where I gotten to in life. I was, getting into my 40s, I was in my early 40s, and, I'd seen a lot of family members that were around no longer there. And there were some that was unexpected and that were no longer here. And I was just like, man,
But tell
I
us the
got
three Ds again. What are the three Ds? I like that. Discipline,
discipline, decisions,
decision.
desperation.
I think people believe, and I would say maybe some people have the discipline. They make a decision, but where they lack is the desperation. I think of the great Les Brown, right? You got to be hungry. You got to be
Hmm.
desperate. Talk to us about that D, because I think that's what our audience needs to hear today. Because if you're not desperate, because I know I see your success now, Mills, but there was a time when you had to get even more desperate, because if not, you wouldn't have made it past that tipping point to where you're at today. And I see so many speakers, so many coaches, so many entrepreneurs that they want the fame, they want to be an influencer, they want everything, but it gets to that point where it gets a little bit too harder. And don't mistaken what Mills said. There's a low financial barrier of entry, but even though the financial point of barrier of entry is low, the emotional side, oh, it's going to cost you more than you think. Am I lying?
No, you are totally correct. I mean, yeah, a lot of speakers, man, they tap out. They tap out because, yeah, emotionally, um, trying to get speaking gigs, it's not going to boost your ego. um, you have to do a lot of reaching out to people, and you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear a lot of no's. And so you have to keep going, and, you have to do what you got to do, and early on for me, those, I'd say 2017, 2019, it was a tough time for me. Just personally, it's very tough. But again, I believed in myself. I believed that I could do this. And so that's what kept me going. I want to have a legacy for my children. And, like I said, life is short. And I felt like I had to make up ground in life. And so I did whatever I needed to do. I drove Uber all over San Antonio. In fact, I remember picking up a guy that knew you. I told
What?
him, yes, I kid you not. I was taking him to the airport, and, I told him, I say, hey, I do a little motivational speaking. And he's like, yeah, my friend Daniel Gomez, he does it, and I know I think you were still probably doing the car stuff too,
Yeah.
working in automotive. And because I think that guy was doing it too, but he was out there by Fiesta, Texas. I picked him up. I can remember it, and he knew you. But yeah, I was doing Uber and stuff. It's funny, I could be on a stage one day, and then hey, next day I might on my free time, outside of my job as an educator, trying to make a little bit of extra money, and doing Uber to try to support my dream. So that's what I'm saying. You have to have that type of desperation.
Man, somebody needs somebody. God's talking to somebody this morning. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you say you want it, but you're not desperate. Look at what Mills did to get to the point in his career right now where he's at. You see the speaking career that Mills has, you see the success he's had as a speaker, but yet you're not desperate. All you're doing is complaining, and you're trying to justify why you're not where you wanted to be at. And it's because you're not desperate. No, your ego, right? One thing that your new identity as a speaker, as a coach, as a trainer, as an entrepreneur, whatever business you want to be, it's going to cost you your ego and your pride, because there's going to be a time where you have to humble yourself and listen to what Mills said. He drove Uber to get over the hump. And many of you, you're doing it for the applause, not for the cause, and you're wondering why you're not succeeding. I'm saying it again, you're doing it for the applause and not for the cause, and you're wondering why are you not succeeding? Man, I mean, I think what we're talking about, we're definitely talking about business and speaking, but I think like this is stuff that people can apply in their life, Mills, because you got to be like, even if maybe you don't want to be a speaker, maybe you don't even want to be a business owner, great. But what if you can improve the quality of your life? What if you can improve how you see yourself, how your kids see you, how your wife sees you, how your husband sees you? You got to get to a point where you're fed up with stuff and you start tolerating that. And then you got to get desperate, like Mills is saying. Like, you know what hurts me more than anything else, Mills? Is when I see people that tolerate BS and they don't do anything about it. All they do is complain. But those are the same people that criticize Mill, that are cynical about him. And I realize this because you and I are reminding them of what they should be doing, but they're not doing it because they don't have the belief, like you just said, in themselves.
Yes, definitely. And I can say, thank God that I've never really had anyone come up to me and say, well, maybe one person, but and that person will remain nameless. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, people have been pretty supportive. Nobody's come up to me and been like, "Oh man, you shouldn't do that speaking thing. That's crazy," or whatever. Again, I have a small circle, and so everyone was generally supportive of me and felt like, I can even remember my cousin who was like my sister. She was like, you're gonna make it. You are going to make it. This was like 2018. And way before I'd even traveled out of state to speak or anything, she's like, you're going to make this happen, and to sit here in 2024 and think about support like that from people is like, wow, man, that's something.
Well, I think I love what you said because I think so many times in a person, they don't have the belief. They say they believe, but they don't believe out of desperation. That's when you got to dig deeper and like listen to what Mills said. He went through no's. I can tell you I can tell you because I've been on the same path. You've been through hundreds of no's. And
Probably
you're
thousands.
thousands.
over the
Yeah. And,
hmm
and 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 one thing that I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and Mills, I'll get Mills' perspective on this, is you can't take those no's personal.
Oh, no doubt.
And so many people take those no's personal that it hurts their ego. And like next thing you know, the same fire, the same passion they had in day one is barely day 30, and they want to give up because they're taking all those no's personal. How did you not take those no's personal? Because I know before I got my first gig and my first really, really legitimate gig, I think I applied to 75 opportunities and then I got a yes. And the only thing that kept me going was Mickey Mouse, right? Walt Disney got over 300 no's before he got a yes at the bank. So I said, man, hey, if Mickey can do it at 300, right? If Walt can go to 308, I got this.
Well, man, I think I could credit my mom. My mom was one, she raised me in a way that what other people had to say didn't dictate my worth, whether it's other kids making fun of me or whatever else. And so I think that that's a core value of mine, even through being a young man, going to college, whatever else. And so I think that's a part of it right there is that, not everybody's going to like you, and that is totally okay. And so I was never one that really went overboard as far as like, oh, I'm going to dress a certain kind of way because it's going to get approval of people. And I'm going to drive a certain car because it's going to get approval of people. Again, I just wasn't raised like that. So I don't have that that personal need for approval. And so when I got into this, I just never was one that just took it personal at all, because people are going to say no. And I think like any business owner, you're not going to get everybody. In fact, most people are not going to buy your stuff. The most successful businesses don't sell to everybody every day. You know, they
Yeah.
got people out the McDonald's is the most popular restaurant, but they got people out there that do not like McDonald's, that hate it,
Yeah.
that will never step foot in it. Yet they are very profitable, they are very successful. So, we can't always be seeking the approval of everyone or expect everyone to just get on board and say yes. And like you said, a lot of speakers, boy, they think that, oh, I got this message that'll save the world and stuff. And they think just because of that, people are going to hire them. And no, it's not that, I mean, maybe the person doesn't have a need at the time. Maybe they ain't got money. And so, you have to kind of think along those lines. You can't take it as, oh, that person doesn't like me. I mean, that might be a possibility. They might not like you. That's
Yeah.
true. They might not. They
Yeah.
got racist people out there. They got sexist people, that are in the position to hire someone. So, that could be the reasons too. But that's not my concern. You
So
know.
let me ask you this: as your speaking business grew, what was one of the hardest moments on your journey that you had to overcome? What was one of the hardest moments you had to overcome that you look back and you're like, that kind of made me who I am today?
I would say, I mean, those moments where I had to do Uber, and I mean, it was just a blessing. I was just dealing with a lot in life. I would say 2017, 2018. And
So just for a point of reference, were you still a teacher too? So you were a
yes.
teacher,
Hmm.
you were a speaker, and an Uber driver?
Yes, I was doing it because I was hungry, man. I was desperate,
Damn, ladies and gentlemen, listen to what Mills just said. Not
And a
only was he a
dad,
teacher
and a dad too, I
and a
mean,
dad, but you were getting paid for being a teacher.
hmm.
You were a Uber driver and a speaker. Now that's what I call desperate wanting it. That's what I call chasing your dream, wanting your dream to come to pass. And many people, they're too shallow and they don't do those little things. I mean, tell us more about that, man, please.
Yeah, I mean, it was just stressful, I mean, my marriage, which ended up in divorce, that wasn't going too great, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can remember um I had a car, and this was so yeah, I had a car, had a lot of problems with, but I had a great mechanic in San Antonio, mobile mechanic, great guy, and he just would come out to the house, fix the car and everything. And so I had this little car, man, and he came out, was having it just stopped steering. So crazy. Couldn't turn it at all. Like something just went awry with the steering system. He worked all day on the doggone car, and he thought he had it fixed. And we started up, it still wasn't turning. And he's like, man, Mr. Rogers, man, I don't know, man, you should probably just let the car go, you know? And, I mean, money was tight and everything, but he was like, man, I don't know, man, just let it go. Get you something else, go to one of these dealerships or whatever, get you something. He's like, Mitsubishi got their deal and stuff with
Yeah.
the Outlanders or whatever, He's like, they'll take it, they'll take whatever, trade it in, get rid of it. And it was really a pivotal moment, man. I can just remember this was probably, yeah, about November, December 2018. And yeah, I was just like, man, money's tight, the marriage is just not what I would like it to be. And there was just a strain, the cars screwed up. And so I ended up going to the Mitsubishi dealer out there in San Antonio, and on a Saturday, and just seeing like, man, what do y'all have? I mean, it's like, well, we got the deals, $4,500 cash back or whatever else. Cause I was like, give me the smallest car you got, and I forgot what the
The
model was.
Mirage.
Yeah, I think it was that. And it's like, man, you're a bigger guy, I'm not a huge guy, but I'm 5'11". It's like, you look better in an Outlander or something. And I'm just thinking like, man, I'm not gonna get approved for this. My credits, that's another thing. Credit is kind of screwed up. And they end up getting approval. I'm like I was surprised, like, Because I was just like holding my head in the salesperson's office, like,
Yeah, like God
because
give me
I'm
a
just
miracle.
stressed.
Yeah.
And got approved, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take advantage of this. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do Uber. Went home, had the new car. I'm gonna sign up for Uber. I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna, now I can make some extra money. And I don't know. That was kind of a turnaround moment right there, to be honest with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes your car may break down or a situation just doesn't turn out the way you think you thought it was going to turn out. It doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to. But sometimes God has a blessing for you on the other side of that problem. Mills had a problem. Imagine steering wheel, car wouldn't run. Tried to fix it, still couldn't fix it. Many people would have been mad. Why God? Pissed off, mad at the world. But he took the advice of his mechanic. He goes, you know what? Why not? Let me go try it.
Hmm.
And he got approved. And that was the tipping point, the turning point for his life in that moment. And you're so busy focused on the fact that your steering wheel isn't turning left or right, ladies and gentlemen, that you're missing the blessing that's on the other side of that steering wheel. So stop focusing at your problem so close, because God has a way of wrapping your blessing. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. God has a way of wrapping your blessing around a problem. And if you're not mature enough to unwrap that problem, listen, if you're not mature enough, you're never going to get that blessing on the other side of that problem. That's powerful, brother.
Yeah, and I
Powerful.
mean, I ended up going through the divorce and everything, but then I met a great woman, that I'm now married to. And I mean, she's just been a true blessing also. So, I'm definitely a testament to, when things they might not look too great right now, but just keep pushing, keep trying, don't give up, keep having some dog in you, you know.
Let me ask you this as we're coming to the end of this amazing show, brother. What's a scripture or a quote that you rely on times of adversity? What's a scripture or a quote that Mill
Yeah.
Rodgers relies on in time of adversity?
I'm big on Romans 8:28. All things, and of course I can't quote it word for word, but all good things happen, come together basically for those that love the Lord. And so yeah, those just kind of what you just said, as
Yeah.
far as those tough times and stuff. Sometimes we're wondering like, man, what's going on here? But if you have if you believe, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in God, ultimately things come full circle. You'll get the answers to like, why did that happen? At the time, trust me, there's several times I was like, man, why am I dealing with this? Why am I going through
Yeah.
this? Why am I not getting these jobs? And then come to now I can look at it and I'm like, man, I'm glad I didn't get those jobs. Because I mean, I love what I do. I've been able to travel to all over the country. I've been to, lost. I had never been to California until I started speaking, and that was always a dream of mine. And my second out of state gig was in San Francisco the day before my birthday.
Nice.
And so that was like the ultimate birthday present for me, to go to a place that I'd always dreamed of going since I was a child. I mean, I used to look at Three's Company growing up, them being in California, watch the TV show Chips. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, California just looks like the coolest place. And I'd never been there until 2019 as a speaker,
Love it.
you know. And,
How
and
does
so
somebody get a hold of Mills Rodgers? If they want to connect with you, brother, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can get a hold of. I'm easy to find, like Deion Sanders likes to say with his team. I'm easy to find. So I'm on social media, Mills Rodgers. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me Rodgers Speaks with a D on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn is Mills Rodgers. My website, more importantly, is www.successisaprocess.net. Again, www.successisaprocess, all together,
I love it, man. Thank you for being an amazing guest. And we'll have all that information in our show notes for you to connect with Mills. Thank you so much for coming here, man. I just thank you for opening your heart. I've enjoyed it a lot. We might need to bring you back for a second time, brother, because we went pretty deep. And ladies and gentlemen, think about what we talked about today on today's episode. What are you fed up with? That just stuck out to me. So many people are fed up, but they're not doing anything about it. Stop being fed up and not taking action. It's time that you take action like Mills did and get your life, your business, whatever it is that God put in your heart to the next level. And maybe you need help. Maybe you need to come to our Makings of a Millionaire Mind Bootcamp coming up here next month, May 24th and 25th here in May. Actually, this month, May 24th and 25th. We want to see you here in San Antonio. We got people coming in from all over the country, from California, Florida, New York. We have some tickets left over still. We want to change your life. The Makings of a Millionaire Mind Bootcamp. It's going to help you become a better person. It's going to help you become a better business owner. It's going to help you grow dramatically. And maybe you're listening to me and Mills. You're like, man, I want to be a speaker. Well, guess what? We want to invite you to our Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, September 13th and 14th here in San Antonio. Yes, September 13th and 14th. We just released the dates. We want to see you. The world needs to hear your story. So thank you for joining us here today. Reach out to me at 210-663-5954, and one of our team members will get with you. And until next week with another amazing guest like Mill Rodgers. Thank you, Mill, again. We'll see you here on the Daniel Gomez Inspires Show. Thank you, everybody. This is Daniel Gomez Inspires, and thank you for listening to our show today. Please share this episode with a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe to our show. And for listening to our show today, I want to give you a free gift. I want to invite you to our Millionaire Mind community. Text the word millionaire, that's millionaire, to 210-942-5059. Yes, join our community today and receive millionaire affirmations, inspirational quotes on a weekly basis. That's 210-942-5059. Text the word millionaire today and join our community. And once again, thank you for listening to our show.